Hi there, welcome back to this build of a Clancy Aviation 40-inch wingspan Speedy Bee. Now in the previous videos you can see in front of me we've got the fuselage in a fairly advanced but still basic state of construction. We've got the wings more or less finished really, servos mounted, ailerons, and we've got the nacelle. Now the next thing I want to be doing, and I've thought a lot about what is the next thing and the order of doing things sort of logically, and I want to be building the turtle deck on the back of the fuselage. But before I can do that, I need to be fitting the nacelle permanently now onto the wing, into the front of the wing there. Previously we've just made it so that it will fit nice and snugly between those two central ribs, but there's bits that we need to cut out and adjust so that that will fit in. Once we've got that secure, we can then put the wing and the nacelle onto the fuselage, and I think it goes round about there with the nacelle of course fitted, and we can fit that nice and securely so it doesn't move. And then, and only then, can we start thinking about building the turtle deck. Because when we build the turtle deck, we not only build it on the fuselage, but we build it on the rear portion of the wing. And we do that all in one go. And then we take our razor saw or a scalpel and we actually cut the turtle deck in half. We cut down the turtle deck, and half will be attached to the wings, half is attached to the fuselage. So we need to make sure that we can fit those wings nice and secure for that build of the turtle deck. So what I'm going to do now, before just moving back a step, before I fit the nacelle into the wings, I'm going to shape this leading edge, because at the moment we haven't done any profiling, sanding really to the wing itself. So I'm going to do that leading edge, because once we get the nacelle on there I won't be able to run my plane down the whole length. So I'm going to do that now. It's a nice day, I'll probably go outside and do some of the sanding, and then we'll come back and have a look at the nacelle and how that fits. Once we get that nacelle fitted as well, I'll be starting to think about where the servos are going to be for the engine and mounting the engine. Right, well, I've got this front edge profiled now to a degree. It's not finished, but I've got the planing done, and the rest I can do with a sanding stick fairly easily. So I'm going to fit the nacelle, and what we need to do is line up the dashboard, the back of the nacelle, with the back edge of this spar here. And it fits like that, but needs to be slotted down. So what I need to do is mark cuts here, here, here and here. So I take out a section of this timber here, a little bit of a slot, so that will slide down and fit. And the underside of the nacelle here wants to fit flat and square on the table, so in line with the underside of the wing. That's how much we need to cut out to allow it to do that. And so, well, basically I'm going to do that now and fit this and see how it looks. I think once we've got it fitted, it shows on the plans that this spar is removed, and I think we'll need to remove that to be able to get the fuel tank in and out. Right, well, I've now got those slots cut into the nacelle, and I had to sand down the back of this one quite a bit to get it to sit square. But that fits nicely now, and you can see here on the table there's some 1/16 ply which just simulates the thickness of the cap strips that go on the underside of there, and we can see that that just fits in there nicely now. And if I just put a little bit of pressure on it, it sits flat on the table along with the underside of the wing. And I have had this off the table and used a straight edge across all of these spars and the front of that to make sure it's nice and flat. So what I'm going to do now is, you can see this rib here hopefully, if I just turn that round, isn't a brilliant fit, because this wasn't glued, and now I can push those in. Same on that side, and now they will glue exactly nice and tight against that nacelle. So, oh, and earlier I said about cutting this spar out here, and you could say, well, if you're going to cut that out, why did you bother doing the slots in the side? Why didn't you cut it flush? Shows on the plans I'm sticking through a little bit, and I guess it just gives more strength around this area. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get that glued in. I'm going to put the cap strips on the top here and on the underside, and then I think we will take a look at the engine bearers and the engine mounting. Now if I just show you quickly, the engine bearer just pushes in there and goes onto a support there, which is 3mm ply. What I will do, I don't want to cut out this leading edge to allow them to go further back, but what I will do is I'll put an angle on the back of the bearers so that they come over the top of that, and I'll epoxy all that, and I think that will be really quite nice and strong. And then, but before I get that epoxied in, I'm going to get the engine mounted, get the holes drilled. Right, I've been cracking on now, and I've got the nacelle fitted in between the wing. I've got that all glued in place, and you can see I've got the cap strips top and bottom. These are really fiddly, these little ones, but anyway, that's all looking good now. It's nice and solid. You can see I've also got the engine bearers in. They're not glued in yet, and I'll show you that in more detail in a second. I've drilled the holes to mount the engine, and I've left a little bit of a gap at the front, but I've wanted to try and get it back as far as possible. And I'm just deciding now how short I'm going to cut these bearers, and I'm probably going to cut them just back of the front here, maybe a little bit shorter. I'm still thinking about that, but I've got that measured up and got that drilled. So if I take the engine off, and I've got a weight in here just holding this in place, and I've got some weight on the back. Now if I take off this weight here, and I've just, like I say, I've got these weights on the back of the fuselage that just need to come off, and then I can show you in more detail the wing. Now, is that still in camera? Yes it is. And there we go. I've not glued in these bearers yet. I've marked a pencil line on the back where they go, but what I've done is, if I take one out, I've just cut a bit of an angle out on the back of that so that it will fit into the plywood just in there, but then it goes over the leading edge, and I'm going to epoxy these in place, so, and that should hold them really nice and secure. And what I'm going to do when I glue those, I think I'll just move the camera slightly, maybe, yeah, I'll just move the camera. Right, I'm going to put those in with epoxy on them. I've got a little bit of balsa here just to put in the front there to keep them the right distance apart. What I will do is trim them first so they're the right length, and then I'm going to make sure that the wing is sat nice and flat on the table, and then I want to make sure that these are parallel to the table. I don't want to give it any up thrust or down thrust. If I need to adjust it after flying it, I can put washers under, but at the moment I'm going to leave it so it's at zero in relation to the wings. And I've got this little spirit level, and I'm just going to put that on and just make sure that these are just absolutely level when I, there we go, absolutely level when I glue them. And as I say, I'm going to epoxy those. So I will get on and do that now, and then we'll come back and we'll have a think about what is the next stage with this build. Well, I've now got these beach bearers epoxied into place, and I'll tell you, it's really exciting. Now I've got the engine mounted, I've just got a couple of bolts in, and I think that looks so good. And I think this tiny OS fs26 will power this really nice. So it's a great running engine, and it's a great size for this model. So it is really exciting at this stage to see it starting to take shape. And I started to look at the fuel tank location and the servo, and you can see there's plenty of room there, not only for the fuel tank but also for the connection, the control rod to come down to the throttle. But I don't want to get sidetracked at the moment and start fitting it out like that. I want to kind of stay focused on getting this wing fitted onto the fuselage, or at least so we can put it onto the fuselage and hold it secure in the location that it will eventually be. Now if we put this on here again, we can see how good that looks, and this just fits really nice on the front, and you can see I've trimmed the engine bearers just a little bit back from that nose. Now eventually, because this is a two-part model, you've got the wings and the fuselage, eventually there will be some 3mm ply that goes down the inside of the nacelle on both sides and locks the fuselage on here with some bolts, and there'll be a kind of a bit at the back that kind of hooks in first and then that comes down. But I don't want to glue these in and do that at the moment, because with these sticking down it's just going to be a real pain. Every time I want to put the model down it will be on those. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the wing on top of the fuselage where it's going to be in its final place, so get it accurately placed, and then I'm going to get some pieces of balsa and I'm going to just stick these on the inside of the frame. I'm not sure if I'm going to do it on the fuselage or on the inside of the wing, just some little locating lugs. I'll probably do it on the fuselage so that we can sit this down and it won't move side to side, forward to backwards. And then I've got some big elastic bands. Got some here from a vintage model, which I'll probably just put around to a dowel under there to hold that nice and secure. And once we've got that located secure and it won't move around, we can then start to build the turtle deck, because as I said earlier, the turtle deck is built on the fuselage and the wing, and then we trim it. We cut it down, I think it's wherever that is, we cut it down I think on a former about there, yeah, it must be there, and half stays on the fuselage, half stays on the wing. So what I'm going to do now is I will start to set this up and I'll show you what I've done and how we're going to hold this nice and still. Right, well, I've now got this located securely, the wing on the fuselage. It doesn't move side to side, doesn't move forward to backwards, forwards to backwards, and it's done very simply, but like I say, it's very secure. And you can see at the back under here there's a dowel that goes through, and I've got these broad elastic bands that are holding it in place so it doesn't do any damage to the balsa. And again on the front you can see that broad elastic band coming across the top. So those are holding it down, but there's some locator pegs which are popping up from the fuselage, and I'll show you those now. As I said, a nice snug fit. So if we take the wing off, we can see there's just 3 pieces of balsa. We've got these 2 on the inside of the longerons, which then had a piece of 1/16 put on the outside of that, and these were sanded to shape so it was nice and snug and central. And then we've got this piece here which presses up against the leading edge of the wing, and we can see here there's just a couple of pieces of balsa on the leading edge either side to stop it going side to side. So to get this on, we just line up those front pieces and then we just slot the bits at the back inside of the ribs, and there we go. It doesn't move forward to backwards or side to side. It's really secure and precise, and once we get these elastic bands and dowels, that will really hold it in place and stop it moving. So now we've got wing really secure on the fuselage, we're ready to start building the turtle deck. And this is really exciting because other than the tail and the fin, this is the last bit of building we've got to do, and it will really start to take shape when we get this built. The turtle deck goes from here, we've got a cockpit, and it goes all the way back to there. And as I said before, I think I've said a couple of times, we then cut it, but obviously we need it nice and secure while we build it up. So that is the next job, and that's going to be the focus of the next video. I'm going to draw this video to a close now, and I feel really pleased with how far I've got in this video, getting the engine mounted and the wing securely located. And as you can see, those little bits of balsa holding and locating that wing are really simple, and they'll just cut off and file off, sand off at the end of the day. So I hope you found this video useful and interesting, and please come back and see how we get on, because it's going to be really exciting getting this turtle deck finished. Thanks very much for watching.